Hi, and welcome to the Revive, Thrive, and Optimize podcast. I'm Billy Weiss, compounding pharmacist and health and wellness expert. I'm really excited today because our guest is Janet Miller. Janet, how are you?
I'm great. Hey, Billy, this is going on 8 years
Awesome.
that I have been your student.
Yeah, well, that's great. So thank you so much for joining us. And you were just talking as Mike was kind of getting all the volumes and things right, that you just did a cruise, or tell us about that.
I was on a catamaran. We were on the boat for 9 days, scuba diving and hanging out in another country and visiting islands. And so it was interesting to try to stay on plan with eating the way I like to eat and what makes me feel good. However, after being really strict for the past year, I can tell that I can fluctuate and go back and forth from being a sugar burner to a fat burner, and I'm more flexible now.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't eat perfect the whole time, but I felt great. I wasn't constipated, and I was able to bounce back. So we just got home, and I'm a little tired, but drank a ton of Kangen water today.
Right.
When I met you, I already had owned a couple of Kangen machines for many years. I had been on this trajectory with a functional medicine doctor in Los Angeles for a long time. I had been already taking peptides. I was getting certified in other nutrition programs and spent like $4,000 doing one recently that I did not learn nearly as much as what I learned in your weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to thank you, because when I came and moved from LA to Asheville and then to Shelby, I couldn't find anybody that was on board with my hormone replacement therapy, much less could explain to me what I was doing, who knew about the peptides I was taking and things like that. And so, thank you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And it's really nice too, Janet, to have somebody who was already doing things before they ever met me. You had Kangen water. You were trying to learn more about nutritional things. I mean, you were living it. You just needed maybe some direction, right? Some guidance, some help. You were using hormones. You were using peptides. And that was before hormones and peptides were, we'll call it cool, right? I mean, they just weren't very well known.
Not just cool. My doctor was saying, do not do what you're doing. So I had a lot of conflicting information, and I didn't know who to trust. And so I took your class, and I have taken your weekend class 8 different times.
Yeah.
And every time it's different. Every time I learn more. Every time I can't wait to go out into the community and tell my students, I'm a yoga teacher, everything I've learned. And my biggest challenge has been overcoming a lifelong eating disorder, which I overcame a long time ago, but the effects of that and the tendencies around being like sugar to me is like crack. So you've helped me a lot with that.
Well, that's good. And you said something that really tweaked my interest when you said that your doctor was telling you not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Janet, I know that was years ago, but I still every day hear that from women and men that I do consultations with on their hormones, their supplements, their cancers, their diabetes, their whatever it is. And their doctors will often, and I warn them of this because it's happened so much. Your doctor's going to tell you not to do this. It won't work. It's dangerous. It causes blood clots, heart attacks, strokes, whatever. So it's not uncommon. It's still not uncommon today, which is mind-blowing with all the research and all the data that's out there. But it's still not something that the medical schools, the nurse practitioner schools, the physician's assistant schools, the pharmacy schools, they don't teach it.
Yeah, and then you go down the rabbit hole, and then you don't know who to trust, and it's very confusing.
Right.
And you love to help people. My mission in life is to help people, so I try to share information. But I got to a point where I had to stop worrying about everyone else. This happened 1 year ago in June, so it's been 1 year that I came back to you, and I sat down with you with my current blood work, and I said, I'm either exercising or either eating right or either my mindset is right. But I came to a place where I had to stop worrying about everybody else and just think about me, worry about me, not worry about judgment, and put it all together so that I had my mental, spiritual, physical everything all came together, and that has helped me succeed, because when we sat down a year ago, I was 30 pounds heavier. And in my job, I'm in little stretchy pants in front of a mirror all day long. And so it's hard not to be judgmental and look at myself. And so I thought, I don't care what I look like on the outside anymore. It's about what I look like on the inside and what I feel like on the inside. And from your courses, I learned a lot about fat, so visceral fat. My goal was to get my visceral fat down. And 1 year ago, my visceral fat was 10. And today, my visceral fat is between 3 and 4.
Awesome.
1 year ago, my body fat was, and oh, I don't want to say this, but it was like 31.
Right.
And now it's 17, 16, 17.
That's
it's
really,
kind of going back
really
and
good
forth there.
Yeah.
And I think it's really difficult to lose fat without losing muscle. And my goal was, I'm going to lose fat, and then from now on, I'm going to work on gaining more and more muscle. But I didn't lose any muscle in the past year.
Yeah. And that, Janet, is unbelievable, because the medical community will tell us all over every day it's impossible to burn fat without burning muscle. But we see people do it. But what you've done is really amazing. Think about it. You've lost 30 pounds of fat. You dropped your body fat percentage to a very low for a lady, 16 to 17%. You've dropped your visceral fat, which is the most dangerous fat, right? The fat that we don't necessarily see, but the fat that's around the organs that kills us the quickest, from a 10, which we would recommend a 4 to a 6. You're there. So, I mean, you've made, and you did it all in a year. So let me ask you, how much have you suffered doing that? How hard was it?
It wasn't hard because, like I said, I did all the things, the mental, physical, spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to you as far as my numbers and what you recommended. And then in the beginning, I started out with your L-carnitine that you formulate, which is a fat burner.
Yep.
That gave me a lot of energy and kind of kickstarted my fat burning. But for me, my gut health and the relationship between my gut and my brain and depression and all that was what I was really concerned about. So you probably don't remember, but you started out with helping me with just healing my gut. So I wasn't really worried about anything else other than healing my gut. And as that happened, I felt better. I really eat all the time, but I just count protein. So in order for me to eat enough protein, I feel like I'm eating all day. And I mean, I eat a lot. Fortigen, the drink Fortigen is my best friend. I actually crave it. And a year ago, I decided absolutely no more alcohol. And I decided I would do that for 1 month. And so I went a year with no alcohol, except for I did a champagne toast last week to celebrate someone overcoming cancer. And that was fun. But
so one glass of champagne's not gonna.
No. But what I did hear about the alcohol is that when you put alcohol in your liver, it can take 5 to 7 days to get the poison out of your body. And during that time, you can't burn fat. And I'm like, I don't want to waste 7 days, right? So that was like, every month I'd be like, okay, one more month.
So it only took me 8 years to convince you, and 8 weekends, right?
Right.
8 weekends and 8 years to convince you to quit drinking. But it worked.
And I feel so much better.
Yeah.
I feel so much clearer. And I sleep better. I'm still working on sleep.
Right.
But when I came to Billy, I was teaching a lot of yoga. I had been teaching gymnastics for years. I'm also a Pilates teacher now. But I had a lot of arthritis and a lot of osteoarthritis and problems, knees and ankles, and particularly my hands and my wrists.
Yep.
And I remember my goal was I can do cartwheels again. And I can do cartwheels all day again.
Well, and I remember us talking about like cartwheels and handstands were a goal that you wanted to be able to get back to because you just couldn't.
Yeah.
And so through the 5 pillars of the OptiU plan, you've been able to reduce your inflammation, your arthritis type symptoms, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that from the supplements that I take, and I wouldn't take anybody else's supplements other than the ones that you sell because I trust the source. Also, I can look at my blood work and kind of figure out what I need, what I need and don't need. That's been very helpful. Drinking the water, sleep, the mental mind focus, and really telling myself, positive things. I think that's huge. So all the things that you've for 8 years
Yeah.
chipped
Yeah.
away, right?
Well, hey, it just, you got to learn. We got to learn as we go. I'm still learning something new every day about health
Absolutely.
and trying to implement
Absolutely.
it.
And I'm proud of myself, but I've got a long way to go because it's a lifestyle, and my body and my mind and the environment, everything's changing all the time.
Right.
So I'm just working on me a little bit day by day. I'm not going to be perfect. It's hard with some of my friends who think, oh, she's taken all kinds of, diet things and she's back into her eating disorder. That's why she's lost weight,
Right.
all this stuff. And I got to just be like, I don't care, what
Right.
other people think. I just got to do
Right.
me, right?
Well, you just said you're making sure that you take your supplements every day. You're drinking your water. You're getting in your grams of protein every day, which is obvious when you've lost 30 pounds of fat
Yeah.
and you haven't lost muscle. You look great. You feel great. I mean, you're working out every day. You're teaching yoga classes and Pilates classes. So,
And I'm stronger now than I
Yeah.
was 10 years ago
Yeah.
as far as what I can do.
and Janet, that's what's an amazing theme for all these people that I've been interviewing. They feel better. They're stronger. They say they don't suffer. They don't think this is hard. But we keep seeing this theme of people feeling better, even though we're all older today than we were 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? So you really can, I don't like to call it anti-aging, but anti-olding.
I like
You know
that.
what I mean? Like we don't have to just because we're getting chronologically older doesn't mean we have to biologically get older.
Right. And I
So-
know that you have a very low biological yours is very
Yeah.
low. And so I want to see what mine is. I want
Yeah.
to figure that out too and start
Yeah.
working on that.
Well, we can there's definitely tests for that. But yeah, so yes, my biological age test was pretty well received. The doctor was blown away
Yeah.
that did it, the researcher.
You're
that
like a
did it.
middle school kid, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I tell everybody I feel 18 every day, so I need to be able to back it up, right?
And I have to also say that, just sitting back and watching you've been so consistent. It's like you really walk the walk.
Mhm.
And I respect that so much with you, your family, and your wife, and just you walk the walk. And that means the world.
Yeah, and
So-
so when I teach you or anybody, the groups, not that it's probably a better idea not to drink any alcohol. It's not that I'm going out on the weekends and drinking alcohol, right? You know that. Like we're not drinking any alcohol, period.
Right.
So I try to teach things that we're doing. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And I also always talk about how anything that I would ever recommend to you or anybody really has no side effects. That's what I love about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to pay for it. There's a
Mhm.
cost involved. There's an investment. There's a commitment.
But
But-
it's worth it.
Yeah, and that's what everybody that
Yeah.
will actually do it will tell you is worth it, but it's not laden with 398 side effects like the average prescription drug, right? I don't have to warn you, oh my gosh, Janet, you might have kidney failure, heart failure, you might have sudden death when you're taking this drug.
And I can go,
We don't do that.
do I spend my money on this bottle of tequila or do I spend my
Right.
money on this magnesium?
Right.
Or
Right.
whatever. So, it's worth it. And I don't think your prices are crazy, especially coming from Asheville or LA.
Right.
They're not at all.
Right.
Um,
I would probably be considered a discount store in
Yes.
LA, wouldn't I? Yeah, I would think. So tell us, you mentioned earlier, though, that you had a previous eating disorder, which, thankfully you've been able to overcome for years now. What happened? What were some of the things, though, that caused you to experience?
Well, first of all, it came from having absolutely no education as to how we're supposed to eat. We don't learn that in school. I just thought, you count calories. So I would maybe not eat all day long so I could have that piece of chocolate cake. So my nutrition was really poor. On top of that, I was a dance major. I have a degree in dance and movement and have been teaching movement my whole life. And with that came a lot of performances on stage and auditions where, as a ballerina, you want to be skinny and thin. And I had the football player body. And so I became a binge eater. So I would binge eat, I would take laxatives, I would binge eat, I would take laxatives, I would starve for periods of time.
Mm.
And so I was getting weak. And then probably that's where some of my osteoarthritis developed. And then one day I woke up and my eyelashes were falling out. I used to have really long, dark hair, and my hair turned this color very young. When I was 21, 22, it started turning this color. So maybe that's hereditary, but I think it was part of the eating disorder, turned my hair this color. And then losing a lot of muscle because my body was just eating its muscle. So after that, I thought, okay, I'll work on being a bodybuilder. And then I went to Gold's Gym in Venice and was a bodybuilder and a trainer and did that for a long time, but I didn't know how to eat right. And then I would go back and forth with the eating disorder. So luckily, spiritually, things that I did helped me overcome that. And every day is just a journey.
Yeah. And you haven't had an eating disorder now in how long? I mean, it's been decades, right?
Oh, yeah. Since my 30s, maybe.
Okay.
And I'm 61.
Yeah.
Going on 62.
Yeah, so that's great.
Yeah,
so you've
30
overcome
years.
it. It's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, I will, obsess. My husband will be like, stop looking at that piece of cake. You've already had 3 pieces. Okay, that's enough, or whatever. And so I eat what I want. And there's a balance to everything. So the balance, people are always like, oh, everything's got to be balanced. But for me, it's kind of an all or nothing when it comes to the eating.
Right.
I mean, I really, make a determination and try not to beat myself up. And this past year, it was kind of like the all or nothing. But that plan works great for me.
Right.
As long as the other things are in balance, spiritually, mentally, physically.
Yeah.
Then the eating can be the all or nothing thing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I find it almost hard for me to believe that you were 30 pounds heavier when we talked a year ago.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm so used to seeing you more like the way you are now.
Yeah.
And so it does show us, though, how if we don't stay on that path, right, if we don't stay on that plan, that lifestyle, that the body will go back to the old ways that we were before, right? I mean, it is a commitment to a lifestyle.
I was a professional at gaining and losing the same 15 pounds over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
So this time, last June, I decided I'm not going to have sugar. So for 6 months, I didn't have sugar.
Right.
And then a year, no alcohol.
Yeah.
And then, I have it when I want to now, and then I just jump back into the plan.
Right.
So I don't think about it like I'm on a diet or I'm on a plan. This is just the lifestyle that works for me.
Right.
It works for my husband. We do it together. We have so much fun, shopping and eating and we go to a restaurant and, we might each order 3 ribeyes and that's our meal.
Right. Right. Well, and that's you talk about how much fun you're having, but you and Don are both a lot of fun to be around. I mean, Beth and I love to be around you. You're always energetic. We're like-minded in most things. So it's really fun. And you're all about helping people. And I know that because you send and Don send people to me. I mean, I can't count how many people you've sent to me over the years.
Well, I especially want my family and my friends to feel good.
Right.
And I've gotten to a place where, I know all this information now and I want to jump in, and say, oh, but are you really taking that? Or, but I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to work on me and hopefully be an example and just keep sending people to you. You have, a lot more than me and everybody's so different. So what works for me might not work for my best friend.
And you've had some family members do pretty well with this too.
You need to get my sister in here.
Yeah, we need to get Gracie. We're inviting you to come. Yeah.
She's kind of shy, but her Crohn's disease. And she's gotten to where, she knows exactly what to do. And then she knows when she's going to flare up. I mean, she knows ahead of time because she goes off plan.
Yeah.
And then she knows how to get right back on plan. Yeah. And it's really changed her life.
So. So that's good. And you encouraged her. She probably would have never found and come to my weekend had you not been so encouraging to get her there. And now I think that she's certainly thankful that she found it and came and got the results.
Well, and as a matter of fact, I got a text from her yesterday. She's like, I'm with Mom and we're at Billy Weiss's over in Gastonia because Mom needs magnesium today and she can't wait till tomorrow and she needs it today. And I told her you were going to be there tomorrow, but she wants it today. So now my mom's getting on board and she's learning a lot. Yeah.
Well, good.
And you've really helped her too, especially if she's got heart problems.
Yeah.
So with drinking the right water, with electrolytes, she's learning. And things that her doctor used to tell her are changing also, I think,
Yeah.
For all of us.
Yeah, it is. And I got to tell you, your mom, for her age, is a ball of fire. She really is a ball of fire. As a matter of fact, we come to the ball game that was honoring your dad. And my youngest,
Wake Forest and Appalachian
Wake Forest
baseball.
and Appalachian baseball, yeah. And my youngest son, Ethan, couldn't believe how old your mom was. Like, he just literally couldn't believe it because she's so mentally sharp, physically active, moving, going, thinking. Like, she reminds you of somebody who's in their prime.
Yeah.
The way she goes and things.
We're so lucky. We have so much appreciation for her, and she's a role model. She's her whole life, worked out and tried to eat right and really set that example spiritually, mentally, physically. And she was a teacher, and she studies a lot still and learns a lot. And I think that was a missing link for me with this, is that I really needed to study, like not just take somebody's word for you need to do this or eat this or take this, but really know why.
Yeah.
So each time I take your class, I just go deeper and deeper into the why my body is doing what it's doing. And I mean, that's the part I love, the education part of it.
Well, and that's what I try to do, Janet. Rather than just tell people to do something, I'm trying to explain to them and make them understand how our bodies work and why. Because what I found over all these years is that you can tell somebody to do something and they'll do it for a little while. But if they really understand the nuts and bolts of how that affects their body, then we can get them to make a commitment.
Yeah.
And then they think before they drink that alcohol. Yeah. They may still drink it, but they think they know what I've taught them, how that works.
And they're going to have a big glass of Kangen water right before and right after that alcohol too.
So we can try to minimize, what people are doing that we might say is not advisable, but we can try to minimize that, and we can try to educate them so that they do it less often. And that's what we've tried to do. Is definitely, people ask me all the time, what do you do? I say, well, I try to educate people on health.
Same thing. And if people say, if I go over to Billy Weiss's, the compounding, I want to get my medicines compounded or whatever, why should I go to Billy Weiss? And the first thing I say is find out when he's doing his weekend class and take the class. It is the best money you will ever, ever, ever spend. And I love that, it's a very small amount of money to repeat the class. So that's why I've been able to repeat it so many times also. So it's amazing what you do. And thank you. That's the main reason I wanted to come up here tonight, was just to, again, say thank you. And this past year has just been amazing.
Well, I appreciate it very much.
And you were talking about like a year ago, blood work wise too, is I try to track always my fasting insulin. To get a doctor to order fasting insulin is so hard. And so all my friends always say, what's Billy Weiss's, blood panel? Send it to me. I'm at my doctor today. And still they will not ask for fasting insulin. And a year ago, when I was way off the plan, I think mine was 5, and now it's around 3.2 again. That's where it normally stays, around 3.2. And I'm trying to keep my vitamin D really high. It stays around 85, 90.
Yep, perfect.
Even though my doctor says 50 is good.
Yes, too high.
Or it's too high, right? Yeah. So, and then with my hormones, we're going by how I feel. And luckily, my hormone specialist knows you and sends you, to compound my medications. Yeah. And so.
Well, Janet, you talk about the hormones and the levels, and that's really interesting because we've talked about this a little bit, but I don't know why we want to put people in a box with their hormones. We don't do that with their insulin. No. That's a hormone, right? It's
so
a peptide
different. Yeah,
hormone.
It's a hormone.
So if people need more insulin, they just give them more insulin. But it's like we got you and me and everybody in a box, and we say, well, we can't give you any more testosterone or estrogen or estradiol or progesterone or DHEA. And I'm like, show me the study where it says it's harmful. Right? If every marker of health improves when we raise the levels and quality of life improves, I'm not exactly sure why we put people in that box.
Quality of life, bone density, sleep, mental
muscle,
clarity,
fat,
muscle
insulin.
fat, everything improves, right?
Every marker of health improves.
So, that's probably the biggest thing that I talk about being mostly in front of women a lot is don't be scared to go ask about hormone replacement therapy. And
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best anti-aging things.
Oh, absolutely. Think
So-
about it. I mean, we talked about this on another podcast, but before menopause, 1 in 37 women have a heart attack. After menopause is 1 in 2. Now, what changes? Hormone
Hormones.
levels.
Yeah.
Hormone levels. I mean, it's just not. It's not that hard to figure out if a woman goes from 1 in 37 to 1 in 2 when she stops producing all those hormones, that they have some play in that
Absolutely.
big change and the risk
Yeah,
of death from
yeah,
cardiovascular or
yeah.
heart disease. So, replacing those hormones, replacing the right supplements that you've talked about, drinking the Kangen water, eating the right foods, and good sleep. I mean, exercise. That's the pillars of the program, right? I mean, it's not really that complicated.
It's not that complicated, and it sounds scary and complicated to a lot of people. And they're like, I just want to live my life and be as natural as possible. But you do have to take some of these steps in today's world to be natural, since we don't have anything good left in the soil, or the air's polluted, or our foods, and our big pharma, big food and all that. It's like you do have to try, and you do have to navigate these things.
Well, and one thing we got to think about too, Janet, and all the other points you made are very valid, but all these forever plastic chemicals that we have in us.
Yeah.
And that makes us have to have, a lot of people, our hormone receptors are not as receptive because of these plastic chemicals there to the hormones. So sometimes we do have to get higher levels in order for the person to get the response. The beauty of that is there's no study that says there's any damage to doing that.
I threw away one of my little plastic cutting boards today. I didn't know I still had it, and I was pulling out a cutting board. And I'm
Right.
like, oh no, I'm not going to cut on this plastic
Right.
cutting board. Dang, I threw that one away.
Well, plastic cutting boards, Teflon, cookware. I mean, there's
your
so
plastic
many
water
things.
bottles, all these things people don't think about.
You can't get away from it.
It's in the water. Yeah.
It's in the water. It's in the Wi-Fi is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a different world when people say, well, I just want to do it naturally. I mean, maybe 100 years ago,
Yeah.
that was much more doable
Yeah.
than it is today for us. It's just that technology. I mean, things just change, right? I mean, you can still grow your own food. We don't typically see people doing it anymore.
And, here you should be able to do that a little easier than in a big city.
Right.
But I think it's that mindset. And so I want to be someone who is always seeking to be closer to God or have a higher vibration.
Mhm.
And taking care of myself is helping me to do that. So I think that, taking care of my food, my sleep, the 5 pillars, drinking the water, all these things, taking the right supplements
Yeah.
is helping me to have a better spiritual life too.
Well, absolutely. I've told this before, and I don't want people to be offended by this, but how can you serve God if you run into the doctor all the time? I mean, seriously, it's hard to do, right? If you're
or work or do anything
constantly
or take
at
care
a
of your
doctor's
kids.
office, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to do. Or if you're constantly sick and run down and can't do things, I want to feel 18 every day, so I want to take those steps. So
Yeah, I had chronic fatigue syndrome diagnosed with that, in my 20s, and adrenal gland failure. And so for years I was tired.
yeah.
And I don't get that anymore.
So at 61, you feel great, you look great,
Thank you.
you're eating plenty of protein, you're burning fat, you're building muscle, you're teaching yoga, you're teaching Pilates, you're doing yoga, you're doing Pilates, you're doing strength training. So what's the 2 or 3 top takeaways that somebody should take from you as to health advice?
I think the mornings are important. I'm not a morning person, but I have forced myself to do something good for myself every morning. I meditate in my far infrared sauna. I try to get protein in every meal. Try to drink a gallon of water a day and just be thankful. And I don't know, maybe that was more than 3.
No, that's fine.
But
those are all great.
I think the mornings are important for me. Otherwise, I could just, sit around all day. And well, now that my husband's retired and he's home, I can't sit around all day in my pajamas anymore. but to work out early and to work out earlier in the morning, to meditate in the morning or pray or, and really set my intention. Because I believe, and you say this in your class, that, your mind is so strong and what you believe, every cell in your body is going to move in that direction.
That's correct.
So,
and the studies show that, Janet. So what you're talking about is getting a positive mindset in the morning, right?
Yeah, right.
Making up our minds that we're going to do good today.
And my husband's great at that. He's a morning person. And so, I've got so much support from him. And he's a great example.
Yeah.
So,
well, good. And he's going to be on soon. So
I
can't wait to get him here.
Yeah.
Janet, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing it with so many people. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right.
You've changed my life.
Awesome. See you. Bye.